chef, and most chefs, I would say a lot, are very helpful. We need a recipe, we need a certain techniques. We're not secretive, we're not competitive. In that sense, we will help each other, and that helped a lot. And I think it's very important for all chefs to have this in mind, that you should always share what you have.
Yeah, I think cooking came pretty naturally to me. I cooked when I was very young. My grandpa was a chef, so at least I had some sort of culinary mentor when I was growing up. And yeah, so when MasterChef came about, it wasn't easy. It definitely wasn't easy. And cooking to me felt natural, but it definitely comes with a lot of hard work, and you need to put in the hours.
You know, it's funny because what you got, I teach, and my son was with me all these years. He was very good in science and everything. And one day he said, I want to be chef. Okay, go for him. So he went after high school, he got his high school. And I'm always, I am the one cooking at home, but not him. Now he's in this business. He's a chef. I found those good jobs so hard for what it is. I'm like, I don't know how you make it. You make it, like, you know.
Well, it's backbreaking. It's stressful.
Yeah.
And you go and you hit a lot of hurdles, you hit a lot of walls. And then, of course, you have to deal with the food critics, and worse, the bloggers. You become, you become the focus of a lot of criticism and a lot of praise. But at the end of the day, when we wake up in the morning, we still want to go to work, and that is important. We have a lot of fun. Life is not all uphill. Sometimes you want the bumps because it creates a lot of satisfaction when you go through these bumps. And I'm sure, your son will go through all this. But, if he is passionate and if he loves it, then, just when the bumps come, just face it, because you'll always be able to go over it.
So just to follow up with all of that, we had some questions in regards to, the fact that these two gentlemen don't have a traditional cooking background, and obviously means their approach to the business, it might be a slightly different than the I don't want to say average chef, but most of those who do come through this route. So the question is, you've now been open with R&D. The restaurant here in Toronto is named R&D, which is both Rebel and Demon. So as I mentioned earlier, Chef Alvin Leung does call himself the Demon Chef, and maybe he can explain that a little bit, whereas Eric is more the rebel in the equation, but it also nods to their engineering background with research and development. So maybe we can get you to talk a little bit about your restaurant and how this came to be, because obviously with Alvin, he does have restaurants from abroad, and what brought you back here to Toronto, and if it's the scene or what you thought you could add to it.
I think it's for Eric.
For Eric's? For both of you?
Yes. How the restaurant came about?
Yes.
Is that the question? Okay, well, after MasterChef, Alvin invited me to Singapore and to Hong Kong, and we cooked together. I think it was more like a trial to see if I was just like a one-trick pony. Maybe I could just win a competition, but maybe I couldn't actually cook. That was probably the first wake-up call to what being a chef actually entailed. He put me through 16-hour days, 7 days a week, and that was I still enjoyed it, and that was when I knew I made the right decision. I enjoyed every second of it, cooking with all these great chefs. I mean, he has connections everywhere throughout Asia, so I got to meet a lot of great chefs, taste a lot of good food, and then after that he proposed we should open a restaurant in Toronto, and we felt that Toronto lacks a bit of modern Chinese cuisine. Yes, we have a restaurant together. We developed a menu together, mostly in Hong Kong. It took over a year to come up with the menu. A lot of trial and error and a lot of research and development. And yeah, together, both being engineers, we had a lot relatable. We both saw food differently than most chefs. I mean, we look at it analytically, we break it down to the science, and all our recipes are weighed out to the gram. So we want consistency from our chefs, because it should be the same when I cook a dish and when one of my chefs cook the dish. The customer should never know the difference. So that's why all the recipes are to the gram, and they're all trained exceptionally.
And having 3 Michelin, how you get Michelin here in Canada?
Well, it's very difficult because they don't have a Michelin guide.
It's what I'm thinking.
You cannot because if there's no Michelin guide, then you cannot get. And you can always write to Michelin and say you want a Michelin guide.
Yeah.
Then please do, because I think Canada or Toronto definitely deserves that recognition. I'm not saying I'm coming here to bring Michelin. But I think you have Morimoto coming now. You have David Chang, and you have a lot of top chefs. So Toronto is getting a lot more recognition as a culinary destination, which is great. And I think one of these days Michelin will see that, and they'll come and there will be some Michelin star restaurant. But right now there is no Michelin guide in Canada. But now going back, I had Eric come and work for me, and because I saw a passion. I saw a passion during the show. I saw a passion, and I saw myself when I was younger, except, not as good looking. And also, I didn't have that opportunity doing it so young. He's starting at below 22. I started at 42. That's a 20 years difference just to start. And you may have the passion, but you also need the hard work. Because, passion doesn't develop a career. Okay, you have to, and, that hard work also comes with the passion. But a lot of people say, I'm passionate, I love to do this, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't, being a chef is backbreaking. 16 hours is he does more than 16 hours a day. And, at R&D sometimes, when we're short of staff, he sleeps in the restaurant.
I have my son 5 o'clock in the morning and finish at 12, 1 o'clock at night. Sometimes I'm thinking it's too much for what he got. It's nothing.
But I tell you,
I'm from France, and that's why I know much Michelin and everything. So it's why I'm thinking.
I tell you, unless he's bringing home $1 million a year, okay, there must be some passion about doing that, and so you should. I think even Eric's father was worried when about everyone's worried. Look, they're spending so much time. What for? But at the end of the day, they must be happy to do this, or crazy, or a bit of both.
And just to follow up on even that, so we know about the fact that these two gents, they came together to put together a modern Asian sort of restaurant. But for those who haven't yet gone, it's 4 months old now, and they do serve kind of Canadian favorites, but with Asian, sort of traditional Asian flavors. So things like kind of like a mapo, tofu, poutine. You've got like a fried chicken that uses like a white soy braise. So these kind of twists are kind of unique and interesting. And I don't know if it was a challenge for both of you to do that here in the city, especially since it's your first time opening up a restaurant and a first time opening up a restaurant here in Toronto. So either accessing ingredients or finding the right staff or help. Can you speak to that at all?
So a couple of our dishes, I'll take an example. For example, our fried chicken, we don't use any buttermilk, because since we developed a lot of the menu in Hong Kong, buttermilk is super expensive in Hong Kong. In case anybody didn't know that, and the buttermilk is like completely different there. It's like, you can do the Dairy Queen test, and it won't come out of the jar. It's that thick. So our fried chicken, we actually brine for 24 hours, and then we fry it with a vodka egg mix, because vodka evaporates at a lower temperature than buttermilk and water. So yeah, little things like that were a little challenging developing in Hong Kong. We used to have a really strong dish, in my opinion, that we made homemade oyster sauce. But then when we tested it with the Canadian palate, they found it a little too fishy. But we actually liked the strong, fresh oyster flavor. But a lot of people just like the Lee Kum Kee oyster sauce. So little things like that we found was a challenge, but most of it came naturally to us. Since we both grew up in Canada, we could easily add our favorites. So like fried chicken, and we had the Hong Kong egg waffle, and then a Sichuan maple syrup. And Canadians love sweet things, maple syrup, and we just add a little Asian twist to it. So it was challenging at times, but it came naturally to the both of us.
Of course, when you open a restaurant in a country, you don't, in a foreign country, let's say. Now, I wouldn't say Canada is foreign to me. I was brought up in Scarborough. Scarborough's a little bit foreign anyway. But after leaving, and then I went on in Hong Kong for close to 25 years before I started come back and stay here. It's, things have changed since I was gone. Except the Maple Leaf, they're still losing. But
Maybe give them good food.
but there was a challenge. Not only the ingredients are simple because Ontario has fantastic ingredients. You got some great seafood. You have farms around that's serving fantastic, chicken, pork, duck, beef from out west. The ingredients, and then you have a big, huge Chinese population here. You got multi. You don't have just one. You probably have about 3 or 4 Chinatown here. So ingredients to us was relatively simple. It was not the most difficult hurdle. The most difficult hurdle is getting the taste. I mean, when people say, you have to cook authentic Chinese food. And, it doesn't, a lot of people here did not grow up. Even us, me and Eric, we didn't grow up from authentic Chinese food. We grew up in a hybrid, okay? Which always, when the immigrants go to a new country, they find out what's ever available, and they try to do things like the old style. But they're not going to do, it's not going to be 100%. Because, the water is going to be different, the ingredients going to be slightly different, but they're going to improvise. So one of the most difficult things we had during the first 4 months was to actually catch what Canadians want. We don't cook, as a chef, we don't cook what we want. We have to cook what you like. We will try to educate you a little, but we're not going to, re-educate everyone. That's not. You don't go to a restaurant to be educated. You go to a restaurant to enjoy the food, to enjoy the flavor, and even though if it's not authentic, you may enjoy it more. So I think for the first couple of months, we're still refining the menu. And as I said, it's always a forever learning curve for us. And I'm here, arrived this morning, and we're going to change the menu. So after 4 months, we're still adding new dishes. We're still refining certain things. And hopefully, in a couple months' time, we will have something that that we'll refine everything, and we'll have something that I would say, yeah, this is it. We're just gonna add new things to it. So it's always forever changing.
Did you tell him you're going to change the menu before that?
There's a question here at the table asking if Alvin kind of pre-warned Eric that he's going to be changing up the menu. So now that you've perfected what you've been doing, is that going to be a difficult new challenge? And I think we could just kind of branch off of that because we talked about the fact that you both had perfected certain techniques. Are there any maybe tips or tricks that you've developed that maybe we can take home that is not in the standard like cookbook or something that you can learn from cooking school, especially maybe from you, Eric, since now you've just been thrown into the kitchen, that things that you never knew, that like water boils faster if you, I don't know, turn on both burners, or if you do a little green dance or something that's kind of interesting and new that we could take home. This is the hard question.
Yeah, that was pretty difficult. I guess you don't need a rice cooker to cook rice. I don't know, since we have to do it in such big batches, we do it in like our steamer or sometimes even in the oven, on the pot, like wherever we have heat, we cook rice. And it can actually, we cook like a whole hotel pan in like 15 minutes in the steamer, 1-to-1 ratio. It's so hard to come up with these little tips and tricks. Definitely never scrape your cutting board with your blade of the knife. I see a lot of people do that.
I was going to ask you if you had learned the hard way.
No. Oh no, I didn't cut myself. It just dulls your knife. I see a lot of people cut things and then they'll scrape it with the blade, but always turn your knife over and scrape it with the back end so you don't dull your knife. I'm willing to answer any questions. It's really hard to come up with tips.
And I don't know about for you, Alvin, over the years.
Well, I don't know, over the years you get a lot of tips. You get so many tips that, I don't know where to begin. But I think one of the things that with Chinese cuisine is getting the right temperature, okay, when you proceed. And then, when we stir fry, we want the wok or frying pan. Now, it doesn't matter. You don't need a wok to stir fry. You can use a wok, you can use a frying pan, you can use a pot. At the end of the day, you need heat and you need a surface. But very important, you need the temperature. And make sure you get it nice and hot before you throw the things in. Because if you don't, you're not going to get the caramelization or what we call wok air. Okay? And, the food is going to taste different. It's going to have a different texture, and it's going to, taste different because you don't have that nice, people will say, people say, this is burnt. But it's not. This is how Chinese cook. And this is, you've been cooking like this for centuries. Okay? So I think, a good tip would be make sure just make sure your cooking temperature is nice and hot when you start.
How do you know?
Yeah, how would you know?
How do you know? It's a good
Well, I think, you can put your hand on it and you feel the heat. Like we all do barbecue, right? And this is how you barbecue. You put your hand on it, but make sure it's off the surface. If you put your hand on the surface, you know. But I don't think first of all, you don't need a lot of times at home. Okay, you don't need to follow the recipe to the T.
Yeah.
Okay, you just do whatever you like. When you get the hang of it, you want to put a certain amount of oil. Sometimes you want to use less oil. Sometimes you use more oil, more salt, sugar, more spice, less spice. And same as, you don't have to follow everything to the T. It comes from experience. And I think, so you don't put away the scales, put away the measuring cup, put away the thermometer unless you're baking or something like that. I would say, just enjoy yourself.
And I think that's a great segue to anybody at the table or maybe out in the audience who might have specific questions, even cooking tips or things that they want to ask about.
I have a question. How did you perfect your Peking duck? Like, what's the technique?
So we have a question about how these gents perfected their Peking duck. I don't know if this is a trade secret, but tune in
What's Peking duck? Or maybe we can explain, what is Peking duck?
Well, Peking duck is a duck with originated, of course, in Peking or Beijing. And, it has a history. The history was in the old days. Chinese are very good. They love things with texture. Texture is very important in Chinese cuisine. And especially skin. So pork crackling, really, really crispy. And chicken and also duck. Now duck was a delicacy. So, and originally they only ate the skin. So there was a time where you may watch on television, when Martin Yan was doing it, they were using bicycle pump to separate the skin so the fat would render and you get the perfect skin. Now nowadays, because of health issue, because of people, people are now avoiding the skin sometimes. Okay, and of course it's pretty. I think it's pretty wasteful just to eat the skin only. So I said, well, people say you're not doing it traditionally, and I said, look, we don't claim to be authentic Chinese. We just want to do things a little bit differently to satisfy what we feel would be new or exciting for the modern palate. So instead of, first of all, we brined it up for over 24 hours. And we brined it to get the flavor. Now the brine cannot be too salty because if you do that, duck for some reason, the color changes and it actually becomes, a little bit dry. So you got to be careful with certain things. Secondly, we slow cook it. Now in the old days, because you only ate the skin, so you didn't have to slow cook it because you just very high temperature, get the skin nice and crispy. But with our version, we wanted to have the meat as well. So we slow cook it so the meat's nice and tender, very moist. So we cut it actually thick and not thin. So we have complaints with what you so-called foodies, what you so-called connoisseurs say, look, this is not the way you do it. See, if you're a foodie, you're a connoisseur, and you start to complain, oh, this is not the traditional way, then you're not a foodie and you're not a connoisseur because you can't see what is going on and what is new and what the purpose of the chef is trying to do. We get all these, sometimes, you have a lot of people who say, oh, we're not doing the traditional way, or you're not doing it with everybody. We're not. This is called R&D, research and development. We're trying to do research. We're trying to. I will not dare say we're trying to improve. We are just trying to do things from another dimension. And so we're using a very high quality duck from Canada, of course. And also we are using, we are slow cooking it. So the whole thing takes almost 3 days. And of course the skin, we have to do a certain, a way to try the skin. I'm not going to give you the full recipe. I'm sure you can find it in the internet, or you can come in R&D, and bug Eric about it. But instead of serving in traditional pancake, we're serving it, with different condiments. But we're trying to do something slightly different. I would say exciting, but I would not dare say better.
And I think that's the big key thing. I mean, there is one thing to have recipes, but then there's also another thing to let the experts work their magic. And knowing that it's like a 3-day process, I think we'll just go to Chinatown and go and visit at R&D and have a chance to really have that experience, especially from the professionals who have the proper equipment and know the secrets to the recipes. So if you haven't tried that, maybe for some of those who are, are foodies or really like to experience new things, that might be a great opportunity to check it out with some friends, or even for those who are maybe from the MasterChef, sort of the fan base there, to see how these gents have taken what's on TV and made it a reality too. And I know that we've got a lot of MasterChef fans here, or maybe some who are MasterChef hopefuls. So I don't know if there's any tips or things that from a past contestant who was obviously won, gone to the top, and then maybe from a judge of things that people who are auditioning should be mindful of.
I would say just cook every day. If you want to apply to MasterChef, you should definitely watch previous seasons for one. Challenge yourself, and definitely time yourself, because the clock is never in your favor. So if you ever want to apply, just set a 30-minute or 1-hour timer and try to make an amazing dish.
Well, I would say, in order to be good, you have to practice, okay? And of course, being innovative always gets you some extra notice. And I'm not sure, sometimes it can go for you, sometimes it gets against you. But at the end of the day, what I saw in Eric and a couple of other contestants was the way they were willing to take a chance. They were willing to take a risk. Of course, it has to be a calculated risk. Being a businessman, being an engineer, you want to take a risk, but you don't want to cause a disaster, which is being kicked out of the contest. So I would say that you should, of course, refine, practice your skills, and also I think you should have, you should watch. Of course, it's always good to watch other seasons and see what's going on, see learn what is needed for certain, like the mystery box or certain challenges. But at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable and just be steady. Don't be nervous, because you have 1 hour. That's it. And I tell you, I'm the official timekeeper. When I said stop, you better stop.
And I know we have one amazing question from this gentleman onto your left side about what was it? Maybe something with MasterChef Junior?
How do you audition for it?
Or is there going to be one maybe in Canada eventually?
Yeah, is there going to be one?
Well, right now, I don't know. But I really hope there will be one. So, there has been talk about it. And who knows? So one of these days, make sure you go and every single day check our website, because, one day you may see we're open for casting for MasterChef Junior, and I'll tell you, I'll be on the lookout for you.
And one last call for any questions out there that who might have. Oh, yes. Oh, we'll go this way first.
So, I come from India, and there's many regional cuisines, and I assume the same is true of China. How do you sort of judge which regional cuisine? Do you use mostly from your own background, or do you go from all over China and Asia?
See, Eric and myself, we went all over China, and we all went over Asia. Okay, and there are so many different, and I know, in India, certain region, they are fantastic, and there's they're different, and there's a lot of them, they're very different. And same as in China, they can be very different. And you know what you do? You experience everyone. You go to the street and you see what's going on. You go to a refined restaurant, you see what's going on. Get the inspiration. And the inspiration is not from watching or for copying. It's from eating. Okay, that's what you do. You eat and you say, this is good, this is good, this could be better, and then, you know, you experiment from there. And, you know, not only from China, we're going all around Asia, because, you know, even in India, you know, there's Hakka, there's a Chinese version, Indian Chinese version of Chinese food, which is fantastic. We find that from every different region, in Malaysia, in Singapore, which is, of course, you know, North Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, all those areas has been, their cuisine was also influenced in some way by Chinese cuisine, you know, some from, and we also picked that up as well. So we, you know, all that, and of course we're engineer, we're very good at picking up information, data, and then reprocessing.
And I think we've got one more question from someone who's going to put me out of a job.
Why are you called the demon and Eric's called the rebel?
Oh, very important question.
Let Eric answer that first.
Alvin claims to be the demon chef, so that one's pretty straightforward. And then in the Chinese culture, I guess I'm considered the rebel, since I'm not a doctor or an engineer.
Yeah, it's our education. I am from France too. It's why for us it's like education.
Is that okay with you?
Well, that's fine with me. You call me whatever you want. I think demon, you know, well, originally everybody say, why you call demon chef? What's that? You know, you're mean, you're sinister, you know, you yell at people, you hurt people. No, I'm not sinister. I just am passionate. Demon comes from Greek word called daemon, which means a spirit. Okay, someone who is high spirit. That's what I am.
You should have it, yeah.
And I think, you know, you can, you know, at the end of the day, you can, you know, think whatever you want, call whatever you want of me, but, you know, this is how I see myself.
And I just want to say a big thank you to both Alvin and Eric for spending time with us, and everyone here who's joined and asked excellent questions. I think might be a couple moments to do some picture taking and maybe personal questions if you were a little shy to ask in front of everyone here. And on behalf of Toronto Life and the Taste of Toronto, I wanted to thank both of you gentlemen for spending time here and sharing your insights on how culinary, I guess, is bettered because of your fantastic work. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I take a picture.
Certainly.